to Exploring Tarot. My name is Sandi, and in this video we are going to be doing a VR video response to V, Love and Crystals, and her tag My Deck Modifications. So I'll be showing you all of the different decks that I've modified over the years. And also at the end I'll show you the decks that I am planning to modify next. So let's get started. The first deck I want to show you is actually, I think, the first deck I ever modified. And that is this little guy. I think I showed this in one of my previous videos. It is the little like Waterstones, like bookshop, just tarot by Dennis Fairchild, published by Running Press. I don't know if it has an actual name other than, because it just says tarot on the box, but this deck I just edged in black, classic, with the black backgrounds, and yeah, it's a cute little deck. It was the first one I had chance to modify. I can't even recall what I used to modify it, but I think it was an archival ink pad. Unless it was just some kind of Sharpie-like pen. Yeah, that might have been it as well. I can't remember. Anyway, it has a little bit of, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can. It needs a bit more of maybe another layer. It's not completely black all over, but I really don't mind. It looks worn and used this way. So that was my very first deck mod. I don't know, does edging count as modding? I don't know, because a lot of my decks I've only edged. I would count it as modding, because I mean it wasn't there from the get-go, so it's a kind of mod, surely. Anyway, the next deck, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this in order of me modding them, because I can't remember the order anymore. But I will show you. The next one I'll show you is this one, and this is the mass market version of the Sickle Tarot, I believe, but it's labeled as under a different name, called, what was it now? Something along the lines of, I really can't remember. I'll put it down in the description below. Something along the lines of read. Can you read this or something like that? I can't remember. But anyway, it's got these backs like this, and I just edged it in this really, I don't even know if the camera will pick this up, but I just edged it in this very soft pastel purple, like lavender type pastel, to match the backs. And yeah, this deck is the first deck I actually got in as my second-hand deck, I believe, from a lovely woman in Ireland. She sent this to me, and unfortunately I can't remember her Instagram name anymore, but I thought that I would Joie with this deck a lot more than I did, but fortunately I haven't read with it much. But looking at it now, maybe that's a mistake. I should try and put it into circulation at some point, because I mean the artwork is really bright and happy and interesting. Yeah, so this one was actually edged with one of the distressed ink pads called, I think it was Milled Lavender. Yeah, Milled Lavender is the name of the ink pad I used for this one. There. Right, at the same time I might as well show you the other deck that I edged with the same ink pad, and that's this Inner Star Oracle. Which also have these really lovely, like, pastel-y backs here. And again, I don't know if it's going to pick up on camera, but the Milled Lavender distressed ink pad is like the perfect match for this deck. It is, you can barely tell a difference between the sides and the backs and the fronts for that matter. All of the colors in this deck are really soft and gorgeous. I love this deck so much, I really ought to use it more than I do. Yeah, so that one again was the Distressed Ink Milled Lavender edging. Okay, the next deck I'll show you these two little ones next. So we've got the Forest Fae and the Language of Flowers. We'll start with this one. And this one I just used just a random metallic marker to edge. It's like no brand at all. It's just a cheap marker that I found in a shop at some point, and it's like got this coppery metallic shine to it, and I thought it would match really well with the backs and the fronts for that matter. This is a really cute deck. The artist of this deck, Nadia Turner, I've been following her on Instagram for years. I absolutely adore her artwork. She's the same one who made the artwork for the Avalon Oracle, which I also have, but I haven't modded it yet, at least. And so gorgeous. I just wish she would also make a tarot deck with this kind of foresty vibe. I don't find a lot of use with this deck. It's just really lovely and gorgeous. I might start using them as like to give away a little one, or to use as a bookmark or something, because the messages themselves, they don't really do much for me, but the artwork I just absolutely adore. So that's the Forest Fae by Nadia Turner. The next one is The Language of Flowers by Llewellyn Darcy. Now, I don't know if that's the author or the artist. It doesn't say anywhere on the box. Nope, it doesn't say anywhere on the box, and there's no guidebook for this. So okay, it says designed by Marcella Cheng, copyright text Llewellyn Darcy in there. So these ones I just edged in the same with a marker that came from the same marker set as the coppery one that I edged the Forest Fae with. And this one is like this pink metallic. It looks almost silvery because I think with these cheap markers they put silver particles. Oh, my partner just came home. They put silver particles in there with some like dye to make the color, but in the end it just looks like, you know, pink from one side and then silver when you move it. But they were only cheap, so anyway, this one is really pretty. I used it steadily for a while. I really appreciate that you get the Latin name as well, and you get a keyword and a little phrase. So these ones I really like using for either complementing a tarot reading or for just a daily little wisdom. Sunflowers are one of my favourite flowers. Rise up, stand stronger and true. Right, so that was just another one of these little rock pool decks. Like so. Alright, the next one I'll show you is also one of the first ones that I edged, and that's the Illuminated Earth Oracle. And this one is just simply edged in a gold ink stamp. I believe it's Tsukineko Galaxy Gold that I used to edge this one. And it's just to match the backs here. I think it goes really well with this deck. I love how this came out. And this deck, I don't think it needs an introduction really. It's just so gorgeous. And this one is by Claire Mack. Gorgeous. Anyway, so and what I have actually quite a few decks that I've edged with the Galaxy Gold ink pad. Another one I could show you straight away is this one, the Enchanted Forest Tarot. By Weatherstone, I want to say. Hang on. I really should go through and like write all of these names down before I start. Linnea Weatherstone, and yes, the artist name is Meralia Allwood. I think that's how you pronounce that name. Meralia? I have no idea. No, Merela, that's short, that's it. Merela Allwood. And I follow her on Instagram, and her art is just stunning. I love her artwork. I know she's also done Wisdom of the Trees Oracle. I think she's done the artwork for that. And I believe that she's working on a new oracle right now, which I'm really excited about. Anyway, so this deck I also edged in the Galaxy Gold. It's not as shiny on this cardstock as it was on the Illuminated Earth Oracle, but it's still one of my favorite edgings because it's all matte and it's a bit sparkly. and it goes really well with the titles that are also in gold. I did consider edging it in brown or green, or maybe some kind of greenish blue to go more with the backs, but then I felt like it would clash with some of the cards in here. Brown would have been fine, but this is my favorite card. So gorgeous. But yeah, I thought gold would at least go with each card based on the title there. And yeah, really happy with this mod. And the deck bag is the bag that I've made myself, and you can see more of my homemade bags in a video that I made previously that I will link down below or up in the cards. Okay. Right, next deck I will show you is the Llewellyn Tarot. And this one I've actually trimmed and edged. This was my very first trim job, and I edged it in the distressed ink pad in the shade Mustard Seed, I believe. And I think it goes perfectly with the backs, the yellow in the backs, and also with a lot of the artwork has a lot of yellows in it. And not gonna lie, this deck I purchased after seeing Boho Tarot's video on this deck, and I just fell in love with the artwork. It's gorgeous and so soft and inviting, and yeah, decided to keep the titles on, and I think that works really well. Maybe eventually I will cut them off, but they don't really bother me at all. I really like how this turned out. This is one of my favorite trims ever, and this card, love it, love it, love it, love it. So this is not an unusual way to trim this deck or to edge it, but I did make this little pouch to match the deck. So I've got this yellow lining here and this gorgeous brown taffeta that goes really well with the backs. So this little setup is one of my favorites, and it's got these little gold pearls, or beads I suppose you should call them, on the strings there. And that was the Llewellyn Tarot by Marianne Ferguson. So, which one should I show you next? I'll show you this one. No, actually, I'll show you that one last. Let's go for Spiritsong Tarot. Whoops. So this one you can immediately see that I've trimmed. This is another trim that's inspired by Boho Tarot. I think we all have those in our collection. So I trimmed it basically exactly like Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and made the deck more workable for me because, again, I've got tiny hands, and this deck was actually a little bit larger than regular tarot size, so I had a hard time shuffling with it. Anything that's any larger than regular standard tarot size is just impossible for me to handle. So I mean a regular standard tarot size does work as long as the cardstock isn't too thick. But yeah, and this one, sorry, I didn't even show you the edging. I did. This one I edged also basically the same as Don Michel. I used the Distressed Ink, Milled Lavender, Shabby Shutters and Antique Linen for this deck edge. Hope that picks it up. I do kind of wish that I had just chosen one color. I'm not a big fan of different colored edges. I don't know why. It doesn't bug me too much, but I do wish that I probably should have just stuck with, like, say, all green or antique linen. Yeah, I think that would have been better for me. Anyway, that was Spiritsong Tarot by Paulina Cassidy. I think she's changed her name now, though, to Paulina Fay. Next one I can show you is the Guardian of the Night Tarot by MJ Cullinane. I think I'm saying that right. Please correct me if I'm saying it wrong. Have not trimmed this one yet, although I am considering it, because this one is wider than a regular tarot deck and just ever so slightly taller, I believe. I can still, overhand shuffle it, but only barely. Kind of need to stretch pretty bad. And this one I edged with a couple of Faber-Castell highlighters from this range called what is it called now? Chrystals something. I'll link it down below. But I made one or two coats of this one, and then one coat of this one, Magnificent Blue. And these are basically highlighters, and they're so easy to edge with because they don't stain the fronts, and if they do, you can just wipe it off quickly, and they just dry instantly as well, so you don't have to sit and wait. You can just edge it and plop it down and just pile all the other cards on top. And I thought this color was perfect for this deck. But yeah, I do think I saw somebody else on the Tarot with Scissors Facebook group who had trimmed this frame off, or the border off, and I really think that that's what I would do as well if there wasn't a mass market coming later this year of this deck. I'm gonna wait and see what the mass market looks like, if it's been edited to be a bit smaller or something like that. And yeah, I think I might pick up the mass market version of this as well, and maybe I will then trim the mass market version instead. This card, I have a special connection to barn owls, and this deck just has a bunch of barn owls in it, so I adore this deck. Adore it so much. Every reading I've done with this deck has been so on point and so just amazing. And the guidebook, which I bought separately, also I really enjoy reading about why she chose certain animals for certain cards. So yeah, that was the Guardian of the Night Tarot by MJ Cullinane. Right, well, why not? I'll show you this one next. This one is in another bag that I made myself, and it is the Joie de Vivre Tarot. these are the backs, and I edged this in an ink stamp called Delicata, I think, and it's a rose gold. It says it's rose gold, but I see it more like a coppery color on the actual cards, and it matches pretty well with the colors of these swirls on the back of the card. Now this deck is also trimmed, as you can see, so it's small and perfect for my little hands, and I like being able to grip my deck like this without it hurting my hands. So I trimmed off a big white border, well, not that big, but a white border here. And this deck really looks so much better trimmed. I love this trim so much. The only thing that I'm a little bit annoyed about is that on the cards that have, because of the swirly font, the F's are a little bit cut off there, and also like J's, I think, and G's have these little, yeah, so it's like cut off at the bottom there. It's not a big deal, it's just you know, a little bit annoying for somebody who wants it to be perfect. But I think it's a good lesson for me to learn how to ignore little things like that. So, that was the Joie de Vivre Tarot by Paulina Cassidy, Paulina Fay. There we go. Alright, the next one I can show you is this one, also in a similar bag to the previous one. And this is the Tarot of the Magical Forest. This is also a very common deck to trim the same way that I've done here, because it was a low Scarabeo deck, so it had big borders with all kinds of different kinds of languages all around the card. And this is a Rider-Waite Smith clone, so it's very easy to identify what card you're actually looking at without any titles. And this deck is just so cute and funny in a lot of ways. And I have not trimmed this yet because I noticed that I have trimmed it, but I haven't edged it, because I found that once I had trimmed it, the edges, because they're so raw, I don't think I tried to edge one of the clippings that came off after I trimmed it, and I noticed that all the inks and markers that I have, they ended up bleeding into the artwork or into the edge of that clipping. So I decided to wait and see if maybe I could find a marker that won't do that, and I think perhaps that these highlighters would work. So this might be one of the decks that I try and edge next. I don't mind it unedged per se, it's just, it looks a bit unfinished. Although when it's trimmed down to the artwork of the backs, it kind of mirrors the backs on the edge, do you see? Which I think is quite cool. But yeah, it would look much better with some edging. Again, I don't really know what kind of color I would go for since there's so many here, but I think maybe just based on the backs I would go for a light blue or a foresty green. Or maybe gold. Maybe that would be, or silver. Yeah. Anyway, that was that. Alright, the next deck I'm going to show you is just a tiny little trim that I did, because these cards, even though they are standard tarot size, I believe, originally, they felt too large for my hands. And at first glance you'll say, well, this hasn't been modified at all. But this deck actually came gilded in a silver gilding. But the gilding was too sharp and the cards were too large for my hands, so I ended up trimming off the gilding, de-gilding it, so to speak. Yeah, I actually started thinking maybe I should have just taken off the borders altogether, but then I ran into the problem of there being white borders on the back, and I would have wanted to keep the titles. So then I would have had no borders all around except for where the titles are, and since the titles move from top to bottom as well, I just decided it's easier to just leave a thinner border, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. The white borders on this doesn't really bug me too much. This bugs me though. It bugs me when they put copyrights on the front of the cards. I mean, if you want to put copyright on your cards, then put them on the back, I say. But to be honest, better. It would be better if they didn't have the copyright at all. I mean, I like the MJ Cullinane ones. I like the MJ Cullinane ones, but because they're like worked into the backs, so they're not very visible, but they're there. But yeah, gorgeous deck that I have worked with way too little, and I should work more with this. So that was that, and the Fountain Tarot is by doesn't say on the box anyway. That's funny. That's funny, but not very good, is it? The Fountain Tarot, created by Jonathan Sayes. That's the artwork, and written by Jason Grohl. Yeah, lovely deck that I still haven't really gotten to know properly. But I've had really potent readings with it, so I don't know why I haven't read with it. Anyway, the next deck I'll show you is the Spirit Animal Oracle by Colette Baron Reid. She's the creator. The artist name is Jenna Della Grottaglia. No. And this deck was too large for my hands because it's very thick as well, and the guidebook's thick. It's a lovely deck. But I ended up cutting off the tops and the bottoms of the cards, and then I edged it in this lovely purple, which I believe is this marker from the same set of the Faber-Castell highlighters, and it's Brilliant Ruby, but it looks more purple than ruby-like in my eyes. So I edged it in this to match with the little flecks of purple on the back here. I took forever to decide because I actually wanted to also make it yellow, but in the end I'm really happy I went with purple because there's so much purpley tones in the artwork on the front, and because I took off the the tops as well as some of the bottoms. The top of this little diamond shape here with the number of the card in it is cut off, but I don't really mind that because it's on all of the cards. Thankfully the little diamond is at the same point of each card, so it's as long as it's cohesive, it works. And thankfully also the key phrases are all roughly at the same, on the same in the same place on each card, so I think this is a deck mod I'm really happy with, because now I can shuffle it without it hurting my hands. Before I couldn't shuffle it at all. Now it's still a little bit difficult to shuffle just because of how the card stock is, but at least now it works. So that's often the biggest reason why I modify my decks, is because they're too big for my hands. So that was that one. The next deck I'm going to show you, we have just 1, 2, 3, 4 left. The next deck I'm going to show you, you've seen before on my channel, and this is also a very common modification, and this is the Druidcraft Tarot by Philip and Stephanie Carr-Gomm, illustrated by Will Worthington, obviously, or of course he's very famous in the tarot world. And I took off this card, or these cards had double borders, so they had first like a little stony border like this one all around, and then they had a white border around that. So I took off the stone border as well as the white border, and I'm a little bit annoyed that they weren't quite printed on there, straight or the same at the same spot on each card. So some of the titles are a little bit too close to look good, in my opinion. But for now, it's fine. I have decided that once I'm really comfortable with this deck and reading with it, I'm going to chop off the titles as well and just have it completely free of words and titles. This artwork is absolutely gorgeous, and after I trimmed it, I edged it in the same galaxy gold as the previous decks I've showed you, with the gold edge to match the little gold Celtic knots on the back, and then also to match the bag that I made for it. And I absolutely love this little combination as well. I think it goes really well together. Alrighty then, the next one I'm going to show you is my Tarot of Mystical Moments. This one I actually trimmed a little bit, even though it was borderless to start with, and that is because the cards were ever so slightly too large for me, and the gilding really hurt my fingers. So I de-gilded the deck, took off the slightest little sliver on the edge of the cards, and made it ever so slightly shorter on the tops. And then I edged it in the Distressed Ink Shabby Shutters colour. And I think it turned out absolutely perfect. I love these cards now. I really didn't care for the really shiny... I really don't care for the really shiny edging on any card really. They are always too sharp. So I haven't done much of a difference for the artwork since they were already borderless. But now they feel so much more comfortable in my hands. I mean, the tiniest, just a couple of millimeters, really does make a difference when it comes to how comfortable the cards are in my hands. So, that was Tarot of Mystical Moments by Katrin Weltz-Stein. And it's one of the newer decks in my collection, but it's already one that I adore. Alright, the next one I'll show you is the Seed and Sickle Oracle. And this one I actually edged yesterday. So this one is brand new modification. Clap in there. And this one I edged with this highlighter, 2 coats of this, and I think it turned out perfectly. I was sitting here for ages. I even went out to buy a marker to perfectly match the colour of these flowers. And the one I found was this one, Koi colouring brush pen, water-based, in the colour Deep Yellow. There. And this one is a perfect match to these flowers. But as I sat here thinking what it would look like with the Deep Yellow, I'd seen a couple of people edge it in Deep Yellow, and I thought it looked gorgeous. But then I found when I was looking at the front of the cards, it's just so many hues of, you know, muted hues of greens and browns and blues and like there's only a few cards that are very yellow. And I just felt like maybe it would be too contrasty. I don't know. I wanted to keep the muted little, like, almost melancholic feel to the cards. I didn't want it to be too bright on the edges. So I ended up doing it in green instead to match the backs and also the fronts. Like, it just worked out really well. I love how this turned out. One of my favorite edgings so far. Yeah. So that was the Seed and Sickle, and now I actually only have 2 more decks to show you. One that I've actually modded from before, but I'm thinking about remodding it, and that is this one. This is my mass market Anna K. That I have only edged in this deep dark brown, the Distress Ink Walnut Stain, I think it's called. And I think it's gorgeous. I love the combination of brown with black. And the reason I'm thinking about remodding this is because I'm thinking about cutting off these black borders. I'm thinking of cutting off these black borders. And yeah, I haven't decided yet. I have the indie version as well, which is smaller and basically borderless. But for some reason, I prefer working with and shuffling with this mass market one, just because the cards are a bit thinner and the artwork is brighter. So I have been thinking about cutting off the black borders and then re-edging it. but I haven't quite decided yet, so that's a mod for another day. And then the last one I'm going to show you is the deck that I'm going to mod next, and that's the Spacious Tarot. I haven't decided what color to edge this in yet, and this is by Carrie Mallon and Anne Wright. I think you pronounce it like that. Yeah, haven't decided what color to edge this in yet. Haven't been able to decide in months. I've seen very pretty edgings done with like salmon-y pink to match, go with this ribbon and the full card. I've seen people edge it in this bright electric blue to match the board backs. I've seen people edge it in all the kinds of little colours that are in these little stars or speckles on the back here. But I have not been able to make my mind up. So if you have any suggestions about what colour I should edge the Spacious Tarot, please leave me a comment below. I would love to hear your suggestions. I have been thinking about doing it in a soft purple. I think that would work really well. Or maybe just this salmon pink colour would be really fun as well. Anyway, that's the next mod project I have going, and I also actually have the Llewellyn Tarot coming in. Unfortunately, the mass market edition that's available right now, which is the Schiffer, I think, edition with the big blue borders. I really wish the Llewellyn edition would come back, so that we could have them in a lovely matte cardstock without those big blue borders again. Anyway, so I will show you a walkthrough when that one arrives, and then I will also chop those blue borders off as soon as it arrives. Anyway, that was all of my currently modded tarot decks. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so happy that you're here, and I will see you in my next video. Leave a comment below, click like and subscribe, and we will see you soon. Okay? Bye!